How you doing? Is this on? This is on, right? It's good? You know, you got jackets on. You look good. What's your name?
Jared.
Jared, where are you from?
Ada, Oklahoma.
I knew that. I knew that because it sounded Oklahoma-ish.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm from Oklahoma? No. I was kidding around. I have good friends that was in my house over the weekend from Tulsa. You know about Tulsa?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
You know about Southern Hills?
Yeah.
But play golf?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's a nice course, isn't it? Yeah. Hard. Yeah. See, I just want to make sure you know I know about that stuff, right? So you guys, you don't mind if I take my jacket off, right? You're probably saying to yourself, this guy was a Pike in 1964. So those people aren't alive. They're dumb, right? They're dead. Do I look dead to you? 64 is when I became a Pike Gamma chapter. That was like the third chapter, right? Alpha, Beta, right? I just want to make sure I know that. I know that, right? I was the rush chairman. Man, I rushed the hell out of everybody. They saw me coming. It was incredible. I want you to know that when I was asked to do this and get the award tonight, I was flattered. More than flattered, I was honored. Because, you know, back in those days, fraternities were everything. And my brothers at Pike were everything to me. Especially because William and Mary was Southern school. And as you can tell, I don't come from the South. You figured that out. So I got down there. This is a great story. This is why I talk about playing in traffic. And what that means is don't get hit by a truck. What that means is you got to get out and engage and do things. See people. Make sure people know you're there. Show up. And you never know what's going to happen. I graduated from high school with a less than auspicious academic record. I went to a Catholic high school where the tradition was you graduated by rank. So the first guy graduates not by alphabet. So you get to the last person still standing on the stage. You got me? So the first person graduates, first person in rank. So the last person to graduate, and when you get and you graduate and you walk off the stage, so you're getting down to the dumbest person in the class. You got this set, right? This was a Jesuit high school. They did this for 100 years. So they got down to two of us on the stage. And it was almost like the Miss America pageant, where the first runner-up, if the duties of the Miss America can't be handled, then the first runner-up. So this is like the second dumbest person if they can handle the duties if the dumbest person can't handle it. And so I was up on the stage and I graduated next to them. They called my name and I said, thanks. I'm not the last person standing. So I walk off the stage. I was ecstatic. You know, when you graduate, you go like this. And I was ecstatic. And then I got off the stage, and I went backstage, and the thing was over, and I suddenly hit me that I graduated next to last in my class. And my head was down, and my father, who was the most positive guy in the world, it doesn't matter, Joe, no, my father, he finds something positive out of everything. And he says, what's the matter? I said, Dad, I'm embarrassed for the family. I graduated next to last in my class. He said, you had a great night. What are you talking about? I said, I graduated next to last in my class. He says, are you kidding me? There's 2,000 people now who know who you are. After I graduated from college, this is cool. So as you can imagine, I played football, so I thought that all you needed to do is play football and you get into college. Send your picture. I looked like Fonzie. And so you send your picture and your stats and you get into college. I get accepted to the University of Scranton. Anybody here from Pennsylvania? You know, we know Scranton, yeah. But you go to the University of Scranton? You're from Scranton. That's a good place to be from. I'm kidding. So now let me tell you what happens. This is good. So I get into Scranton. It's the only place I can get into. 2 weeks before I'm supposed to go to camp, they send me a letter telling me they dropped football. I had a bad streak going on here, right? Bad streak. So now I don't know where to go. There's this military school outside of Trenton, New Jersey, where I'm from, that has a postgraduate program for people like me. Play football, but didn't concentrate so much. Right? Cool. So I got into Bordentown Military Institute. Now, the first thing that happens to me, this is why you got to hang in there. This is why you got to stay with things. You got to have courage. You never know what's going to happen. Don't judge events when they happen. Judge them later. You just got to stay with it. You got to hang in there. I get in this military school, so there's a whole bunch of postgraduates, good football players, but had the same experience. They couldn't get in college, didn't study all that kind of stuff, did other things. So this is 1961. They cut my hair, which is the worst thing that could have happened to me. The waterfall, the DA in the back. I go in a room, this is 1961, and I walk in, and I come from a neighborhood in Trenton, New Jersey, very diversified neighborhood, and 1961, there wasn't a lot of white guys rooming with black guys. So I walked in, and there was a black guy in there. I didn't have any problem whatsoever, and I said, hi. He said to me, what's your name? I said, I'm Joe Plumeri. I said, what's yours? Now, you guys are young, but some old people in here will recognize this name. He said, I'm Floyd Little. Floyd Little's in the Football Hall of Fame. He was a great running back at Syracuse. He was the star of the movie Express, and he became my friend. Notre Dame sent him to this school. So he said to me, I said to him, who sent you here? He said, Notre Dame. He said to me, who sent you? I said, my parents sent me. So we were close and all that kind of stuff. So I walk in a room after football season, we're 13-0, and we're both tailbacks. You can see how good, right? We're both tailbacks. After the season, I walk in a room, and the Notre Dame coach is there. I said, Coach, Floyd and I go together. You get all of us. You got to get, right? Come on, Floyd and I are close. By the way, to this day, he's my oldest friend. My oldest friend. And he was given an honorary degree at Syracuse about a month ago, and I'm the only person he mentioned in his speech. That's how far back and how loyalties go, all because Scranton dropped football. Now, I thought my life was over. So I couldn't, the coach looked at me and he says, Lafayette, Lehigh, and Bucknell, and never get out of that league. I was devastated. I was totally devastated. 2 weeks later, coach says to me, the coach from William and Mary wants to take you to dinner. Now, you go to military school, anybody's going to buy you anything. I'll go with them. I didn't even know where William and Mary is. William and Mary, I thought it was, I didn't know, I'm not sure. I thought it was a Catholic school. I don't know what it was. Someplace, I don't know. He says it's in Virginia, and it's old. Go there. He's a good guy. So I go down with my uniform on, and there's a guy with freckles and red hair. And I say, excuse, because you're looking for a coach with no neck. You know what I'm saying, Frank? No neck. You got it? This guy had freckles and red hair. I say, excuse me, I'm looking for the William and Mary coach. He said, that's me. I said, hi, I'm Joe Plumeri. He said, I'm Lou Holtz. I didn't know Lou. I said, great. Takes me to dinner, invites me to go down there. It's the only place my parents wanted to go because it was Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia. So I wind up going to William and Mary, playing for Lou Holtz, because Scranton dropped football. And my oldest friend's Floyd Little. We get to school, and the coach says, look, we haven't won a lot of games here. This was the first year as his head coach. He says, so we're going to do something different. The backs and the linemen are going to live together. You're going to go to school together. You're going to do everything together, so that way all of that kind of takes on the field so we have a better team. So he says, I'm going to take you to meet your roommate now. So I go over to the room, and there's this big guy in the room. He's 6'5", 250, 260, with a crew cut, and all those people got ripples in the back of their head. You know what I'm talking about. Right? Like this. So he says, Joe, I want you to meet John Sapinski. John, say hello to Joe Plumeri. I said, hello, John. He said, call me Ski. I said, okay, Ski. Coach says, look, everything you do together, I want you to do together. I want you to go to school together. And the first thing I want you to do is go register for Religion 101. So I said, Coach, why do I have to take Religion 101? He says, because they haven't changed the question of final exam in 20 years. Mike, how you doing?
Good.
Good to see you, Mike. So Ski jumps for joy. I just met the guy. So we go over to, in those days you don't do it online. We had to go physically, right? So we go over to the gym where the registration was, said Religion 101. And there was a line, for some reason, coming out of the door all the way to the quadrangle. So I said to Ski, you must know the question of the final exam. So I go in the back, and Ski says, no, follow me. We go right to the front. Nobody bothers us. We register, do not go to class for the entire semester. I know you guys wouldn't understand that. Didn't go to class final because we knew Coach had the question of final exam. So 2 weeks before the final exam, Ski says, ask the coach for the question. I said, okay. I said, Coach, Ski wants to know the question to the final exam. And he said, Ski, write this down. Ski took one of those little pads out and a big pen. I hadn't seen him do this the entire semester. So he writes down. So Coach says, question of final exam is to criticize and analyze the Sermon on the Mount. So we look at everybody. We look at people who, Ski was just seeing people who looked religious and stopping them and asking them what it was about. He didn't even know what a sermon was. I'm not sure he knew what a mount was. We looked at catechisms. We looked at everything. Come to the day of the final exam, he's got a lot of blue books. You guys still do blue books? Had blue books. 55 years ago, blue books. We get to William Mary had first honor system, and it was an amphitheater, and Ski sits in the front row. I'm up here, and we're ready for the Sermon on the Mount. Proctor walks in and writes the question of the final exam, discuss the life of St. Paul. Ski's in the front row and does this. I looked at Ski and did this. Any of you ever run out of gas? Raise your hand. Do you know when you run out of gas, you do not immediately get out of the car? You just don't. You don't. You wait for divine intervention. Something's going to happen. Like brilliance is going to come down on you and tell you all about the Sermon on the Mount. So I sat there for 15 minutes, and divine intervention never took place. So I wrote my name, Joe Plumeri, and I walked by Ski, who's writing ferociously. I don't know what the guy is writing about, but he's writing. I go back to the dorm, and I wait for him to show up. I say, you didn't know anything about the Sermon on the Mount, about the life of St. Paul. He said, we'll see, we'll see. 2 weeks later, the blue books show up. He got a D-, the lowest possible passing grade. I got an F. I didn't write anything down. I opened the book, and he wrote, far be it from me, a mortal man, to discuss the life of St. Paul. But let me take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Sermon on the Mount. You got to take a shot, right? Now, see, when he took a shot. I did nothing. I just wrote my name down. He took a shot. By the way, he wasn't the smartest guy in the world. We played Navy one day. Matter of fact, that they were going to inaugurate their stadium, Navy Marine Corps Stadium in Annapolis, and the frieze in the middle of the decks was the famous battles of the Navy. Coral Sea, Atlantic, all right? So we walked in on Friday afternoon to work out like we always did, and he looked at the battle. He says, "Joe, they play a tough schedule." Ski now owns, anybody from California? There's a string of dry cleaners called Skis. That's him. And he's got 50 of them all over California. And I tell you that story because there's a lot of times when you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you are, you feel like you're out of place, and most people, they just turn and go. I want to just share with you some of the things that I have experienced in my life, things that have worked for me, things that over the years I have found important to me, and they've been kind of like guideposts for me that are very important. I believe that you got to wake up every day knowing that you have some sort of vision of where you're going. In the absence of a vision, in the absence of some direction about where you're going, you're never going to get there because you don't know that thing in your head. It doesn't have to be specific. It could be a beautiful mural. It could be something that is directional for you, but there's got to be something that represents a vision that you have in your head. When I got out of William and Mary, I had a notion that I wanted to be a great lawyer on Wall Street. And it wasn't anything that was going to stop me. If I didn't have this vision in my head, then there was no reason to do anything because I'd just go and see what happens. So I go enroll in New York Law School. New York Law School is downtown near Wall Street in New York, different than NYU. So I enroll in New York Law School, but one of the reasons I went there is because near Wall Street, and I had this vision in my head that I was going to be a great Wall Street lawyer. So I enroll and my classes are over at noon. So I said, this is great. I can go to Wall Street and find a job with a Wall Street law firm. So after class, I go to, and I figure I don't know anything. And I'm just 23 years old, and I figure if a firm has 3 names, it's a law firm. Because you never saw a law firm with 2 names or 1 person. And in those days, you could actually go up the elevator without being stopped. So I get to 55, I'm knocking on doors, and I get to 55 Broad Street, and I see Carter, Berlind, and Weil. I think it's a law firm. I go up the elevator, and I said to the receptionist, who could I see about a job? She said, this is a small company, let me check. She calls somebody, hangs up the phone, she says, go down the hall, make a left, and ask for Mr. Weil. I go down, make a left, ask for Mr. Weil. He said, what do you want? What do you want? What can I do for you? I said, I'm going to law school in the morning, and I'm learning the academic in the morning, and I'd like to work here and learn the practical in the afternoon. He said, what makes you think you'll do that here? It's a great idea, but why do you think you'll learn that here? I said, this is a law firm. He says, no, this is a brokerage firm. I didn't even know what a brokerage firm was. And I said to him, excuse me? He says, we trade securities here. This isn't a law firm. So I was distraught. As you can see, I'm not easily embarrassed. So I started to walk out. He said, no. He says, I like your moxie. He says, I'll give you a job after school. So I said, geez, that's great. I don't know what I would do. He says, let me take you down to the floor with the brokers, and I'll introduce you to the manager, and we'll set you up. The manager says to him, we don't have any room for him. He says, take a door off the closet, stick a desk in the closet. Half the desk will be in the closet, and half the desk will be in the hall. So I said, no problem. So they give me a desk in a closet. 1968. I don't know anything about the brokerage business, so I'm there after school every day. Get coffee, get my laundry, pick up my laundry, give my laundry, go take the laundry to the cleaners, write a personnel policy, buy furniture, everything. And I'm sitting in the middle of the hall. People are walking by me and slapping me in the back of the head. Joe Plumeri. Calling me Joey baby. I figure this out. Hey, Joey, how you doing? By the end of the day, my head hurt. But they all knew who I was. Everybody made a joke. Joey's in the middle of the hall. I would listen to the brokers make trades. They had great suits on. They were making a lot of money. I said, you know what? I think my vision changed. I think I want to be a broker. So I became a broker. And that little company called Carter, Berlin, and Weil became a company called Shearson Lehman Brothers. Which became Shearson Smith Barney, which was the largest brokerage firm on Wall Street, bigger than Merrill Lynch, and eventually became Citigroup. I was in the closet. I was in the wrong place. I showed up. I played in traffic. They hit me in the back of the head. This guy, Weil, for those of you who don't know, became the chairman of Citigroup. For older people, they'll know the name. One of the great names in Wall Street history, merged Travelers Group with Citicorp. Same Mr. Weil. I made a mistake. I didn't know what a brokerage firm was. I played in traffic. I knocked on a door, and they gave me an office in a closet. In 1990, Carter, Berlin, and Weil was Shearson Lehman Brothers. You know, the same Lehman Brothers that you read about with the recession that a lot of people blame for the collapse. Same one. That company in 1990 had an Italian CEO, the first Italian CEO on Wall Street of a large brokerage firm. And he was the same kid who was sitting in a closet, and people called him Joey Baby. All because I went to the wrong spot. By the way, all of those people who hit me in the back of the head, I remembered. And for some reason, their compensation program was a little bit different than everybody else's. So as you're starting your journey in life, I offer you, have a vision. It doesn't matter how specific it is, but have one. Because if you don't have one, you're not going to know where to play in traffic. You're not going to know how to go find the realization of what that vision is. And don't be scared. Don't worry about making a mistake. No one can make a bigger mistake than I did. Twice. Scranton, which led me to William and Mary, and Carter, Berlin, and Weil, which led me to the highest position in Wall Street, especially for an Italian kid from Trenton, New Jersey, and the neighborhoods. You got to have a vision. you got to play in traffic, and you got to understand what that vision is all about and be committed to it. Which leads me to my second point. Commitment is a word that people use all the time. I'm committed. Usually until something goes wrong, and then they go to plan B. You know what I'm talking about. You got fraternity chapters that you represent where you're going to be the best on campus. You got a whole bunch of things you want to do. You got a vision. You're going to be committed to it. Everybody in the fraternity and the chapter says, we're committed. We're going to be the best fraternity on campus. And then something goes wrong, and all of a sudden all the people that bought in don't buy in anymore. You know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. See, commitment, let me tell you what commitment is. You know who the Vikings were? Vikings. Remember the conquerors from the north with the horns on the helmet? Not the Minnesota Vikings, the Vikings. You know what I'm talking about? What was unusual about the Vikings? I'll tell you. They were conquerors, and that was what they did. And their sense of commitment led me to investigate and understand and learn what they were all about. And what I found out is that as soon as they pulled ashore with their ships, they got out of the ships, and the first thing they did was burn their boats. They burned them. And I thought about, man, that's commitment. You can't get back unless you win. Lots of people make commitments, but they're the kind of commitments that say, I'm going to commit as long as it's going okay. These guys were in battle. They couldn't blow the whistle or whatever they blew, the horn, and said, back to the ships. It's not going right. There's no ship. They were committed to what they were doing. They were committed to that vision. The vision was to conquer that land, and they were committed to it because they had no alternative but to win. They couldn't get home unless they won. They burned their boats. You go back to your chapter, you got a vision for what you want to accomplish, and you got to ask your brothers, do we have the kind of commitment that the Vikings had? Are we burning our boats? Do we buy in? Do we want to be the best on campus? Do we want to be the most charitable? Do we want to be the most educated, highest grade point average? Do we want to be all those things? Or everybody will always raise their hand, yeah! But you're willing to burn your boats. You see, there's some people, I think, in life, I try to get things in a position where I understand them so they're simple. To me, there's two types of people. There's two types of fraternities. There's two types of anything. Most people who show up every day, unless they're really bad, are competent. They're competent. Competent is a nice word for average. It's a nice word for not memorable. It's a nice word for normal. They're competent. They made a nice presentation. They're competent. Most people, wouldn't you say, are competent? Would you say that? Would you say that the other kinds of people are compelling? Those are the ones you don't forget. Those are the ones, when they make a presentation, make you remember what they said and made you feel great things so that you remembered and understood the feeling that they gave you when they spoke. Or they accomplished great things because of the passion that they had and the passion with which they went through their life. They're compelling people. I'm sure on campus there's compelling fraternities. And there are competent fraternities. There are a lot of ones that are there, they're pretty good, they're all right, nice guys, but are not compelling. I think, anybody here from, I'm sure you are, University of Missouri, Science and Technology? Where are you? Stand up. Stand up. Now, let me ask you a question. You won the Smythe Award 11 consecutive years. Joe Plumeri. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's compelling. Compelling. Joe Plumeri.
William won.
Nice to see you, William. To me, when you win an award 11 years and you won it 24 years, you had to do something where every year you had to say to yourself, what could we do now that's better than what we did the year before? Because if you did the same thing, by definition, you're going to stay still. So you had to ask yourself the next question. To be compelling and win an award like that, 11 straight years, you couldn't just sit and rely on what you did the year before. You had to have a meeting with all your brothers and say, what else?
What can we do?
What else? If you're not asking yourself, what else? Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So give them a round of applause. If you're not asking yourself what else, then you're content. There's nothing compelling about content. There's nothing compelling about sitting on a lead. When you're all sports fans, raise your hand. How much do you get aggravated when you watch a team on television sit on a lead? Bugs you, doesn't it? Well, what's the difference between being competent and compelling? Win an award last year, have a big party, and that's good. Instead of, hey, wait a minute, we got to win again, which means you got to ask yourself, what else? If you don't ask yourself what else, then by definition, you can't continue to be compelling. You can't have the commitment of burning the boat. So if you burned the boat and you made a commitment to excel, then you were compelling. And the only reason you became compelling is because you had to ask, what else? Did you do every year that you were winning the award the same thing every year? Now stand up, tell everybody. Did you do the same thing?
No.
I never met you before. But by definition, I never did. You had to have a meeting, right, with your brothers and say, what are we going to do now? What else? Was there something different that you did? Tell everybody.
Just asking that question, making sure if you stagnate, you're not advancing. Stagnation is death.
So you made sure that you stayed compelling and you did some things differently than you did the year before.
Innovation.
Anybody know who Winston Churchill is? Okay. I am the only, you should be proud of this, I am the only non-British person who's on the board of the Winston Churchill Society in London, and I'm a Pike. Why do I tell you this? I think this guy was great. This guy, if this guy was Italian, he would have been unbelievable. If this guy was Pike, he would have been incredible. And I always studied a person who was indefatigable, had courage, never stopped, was compelling, committed, single-handedly kept the British spirit alive for the better part of the beginning of World War II, when the Blitz of London, every night, the German Luftwaffe, every night, 186 days in a row. And he would go into his bunker on the BBC and make everybody spirited and keep them going emotionally and tell them, we'll never give up. That's compelling. That's commitment. You feel that. In 1945, the guy runs for re-election. After all that, and gets beat. He gets beat. He stands before the British people and says probably the shortest concession speech in the history of politics. And he says, success is never final. Failure is never fatal. All that's important is courage. So for all of you individually, as a chapter, you're up there like Missouri. It's not final. You got to ask what else. And failure, by the way, is not fatal. All that's important is courage as long as you ask what else. As long as you hang in there. As long as you're committed. You got to ask that question. There are chapters in this room who won the Smythe Award a couple years ago, and I notice that this year you win the Excellence Award because it's in a lower percentile. Something happened in between. And there's some that are struggling. Failure is not fatal, and success isn't final. So when you go back, tell them Plumeri said, success is not final, guys. And for those of you in other chapters, Florida, Arizona, Washington State, not fatal. Ask what else. Have courage. The third thing you need to have is purpose. In 2000, I left Citigroup and I was playing in traffic. I was in Paris and I didn't know what I was going to do. I run into Henry Kravis. Henry Kravis, for those of you who don't know, is probably one of the great icons of American business. He founded private equity, for those of you who are finance majors, and made it an industry. I knew him from the time I was CEO of Shearson. We did a lot of business together, and he says to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, I'm looking for my next adventure." He said, "We just bought this company in London. It's called the Willis Group." I said, I don't want to do anything in London. I said, I don't think I'll go there well, because I don't think we communicate well, me and the Brits. He said, "I think you'll do great." Now, this guy's got a lot of companies. I'm looking for a job. I had been at Citi and its predecessor for 32 years. So he says, "You should go over and you should see the guy and just do me a favor and go see him." So I went with no intention whatsoever, none, to be involved with Willis. I just went as a favor to Henry Kravis because he asked me to. Willis is the oldest insurance broker in the world. It insured the Titanic and the Lusitania. It was a jinx, basically. Didn't make any money for 10 years, and KKR bought it for $3 a share and delisted it from the London Stock Exchange. No energy, all tradition, tradition, tradition. All these places, whether it's a chapter in a fraternity or whether it's a company, those kinds of people who live by tradition and don't build on it die. It's like the Bible said, without vision, people perish. You live by tradition and not build on it, not going to go anywhere. So I go over with that in the back of my mind, and I don't want to be there. I don't feel right, and I got to go run a company that's disaster. Disaster. When they bought the company, for you who are finance majors, they put the debt to EBITDA, which is the debt to the money they make, was 13 to 1. 13 to 1. And their debt to market cap was 97%. You get the picture? So I go over to meet with the chairman because Henry asked me to, and I want to get out of there. I didn't want the job, Colin. Joe Plumeri, nice to see you. I didn't want the job. So I go to this very old building in London. It's a Port Authority building in London across from the Tower of London. Anybody ever been to the Tower of London? Right across the street, old building. The guard was with a hat on and a red coat. I'm just like beef eaters. So I said, I'm here to see John Reeve. He said, oh, yes, the chairman, yes. He said, follow me, please. So he takes me to a lift. They call it the lift, right? So I said, what is this? He said, this is the chairman's lift. I said, the guy's got his own elevator. This is cool. His own elevator. It was small because it's an old building, and me and him are in the elevator. We go to the second floor. I said, what's this? He says, the chairman's floor. I said, the chairman's got his own floor? Yeah, he's got his own floor. Yes, yes, yes. So he takes me down to a waiting room where I am not greeted by anybody. I just sit there. No coffee, no water, nothing. I don't want to be there. So now I'm a little bit emotional. I don't want to be there, and I'm waiting 20 minutes. Guy finally comes out, and he doesn't even say, hello, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. So now I'm a little bit upset. So he said to me, doesn't say how was the weekend, because this was a Monday. He just says to me, I don't think KKR should hire you. I said, why not? Now I'm up. I said, why not? He said, first of all, there's never been a non-British chairman of this company in 200 years. So now I think he's taking a shot at my Americanism. So I get my chair, and now I get a little closer, and I'm sitting more erect. And I said, what else? He says, you don't know anything about insurance. I said, what else? He says, you have no international experience. I said, that's not true. He said, what international experience do you have? I said, I have relatives living in Sicily. Which obviously had nothing to do with it, but I hated this guy. So as soon as I finished this conversation, one of condemnation, indignation, and insult, he couldn't have been more condescending. He says, I said to him, thank you for the conversation. I go out, I go back to my hotel, I call Henry Kravitz, I said, I'll take the job. He said, why? I'm curious. I said, because I just felt a sense of purpose by this conversation, and I'm all about purpose. He said, well, what is it? First of all, I want an American to make history in London. I got purpose. Secondly, he told me I didn't know anything about insurance, and so I'm going to change an industry that nobody would figure I could do because I didn't know anything about it. And I said to myself, I want to see if my act plays outside of America. So I'll take the job. So the first day I become chairman, it's announced 200 Brits sitting in a chair like this. All men except for 2 women. So I said, I got to change. This is not, I'm sick of making a list in my head, right? So he says a few remarks that he reads, no passion whatsoever. He says, now I introduce you to the new chairman and CEO of Willis. He said, Joe Plumeri. He's going to need a lot of help because he doesn't know anything about insurance and he has no international experience. So he's sitting down while he says this. I come from the back of the table and I launch into the audience. And I said to everybody, today begins a new day at this company. A day of passion, a day of purpose, a day of vision. We're going to become the #1 broker in the world. And one day our stock is going to be $30, $40, $50 a share. And I'm saying it just like this to a bunch of Brits like this. They're looking at me like I'm nuts. Not only because they hadn't seen anybody like me, but there was no stock. It was a private company. But you got to have vision. One day we're going to be public. And when we're public, the stock's going to be $30, $40, $50 a share. And I told him, I said, to do that, you got to play together. I said, Willis is a team sport. Just like your chapter is a team sport and you're all committed, you burn the boats. I said, there's no individuals. It's a team sport. And I said to them, I said, anybody go to soccer games, you call it football. I said, when they score a goal in American football or British football, nobody high-fives themselves. It's stupid. Doesn't that look stupid? How about fist pumping yourself? Hey, man. That's cool. That's really cool. That's stupid. So when somebody in this company, they all laughed like that, so somebody in this company doesn't do something for the best interest of the team, that's what they're doing. They're looking stupid. You don't high-five yourself. You fist pump yourself. High-five each other, and you win together. And I kept telling them, none of you is as good as all of you. None of you is as good as all of you. And that goes for companies. That goes for chapters. You work as a team. You commit to burn the boat. And if anybody didn't do that, they were gone. People like to give speeches like that, but as soon as somebody high-fives themselves, they're not, well, it's like commitment. We'll go to plan B. Can't allow that to happen. You're not going to win any Smythe Awards. You're not going to see your vision, or you're not going to you can't ill afford to let somebody not meet their vision. I used to give these pins out, and I didn't know that the Brits hated pins. You got a pin. And I put Willis on a pin. I didn't know they didn't like pins, and I didn't know they didn't like baseball hats. So I made them wear the pin. But I never said anything when people knew it said Willis. And it was it looked like a flag. One flag, everybody together. So when I saw somebody, I just kind of stared at their lapel. I didn't say anything. So it got around that if you run into Plumeri, you better be ready. So a lot of people would see me and say, how are you? Nice to see you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you. And I said, something wrong with your nothing? I'd see women go into men's rooms, men go into women's rooms. One guy I ran into once, I stared at him, and he didn't have his pin on. And he said to me, oh, Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry. I don't have my pin on. I left them on my pajamas. That company, because of a one-team vision, committed to a strategy where people work together rather than by themselves without caring about the company. Stock went from 3. I took it public. I had a vision. Even though there was no stock. Got to have vision, remember? Vision. KKR sold its final shares 4 years later. They made $3.5 billion. I left, it was $48 a share 13 years later. All because I had a vision, I had energy, and I made people play together. And I made sure that they were committed to that vision. And that if they didn't participate, and if they didn't do what they said they were going to do, then we couldn't make it. We were never going to be able to get to where we needed to be. I had purpose. My purpose was to make that a great company. That company, by the way, insured the World Trade Center. It was rebuilt because of an Italian kid who went to London, who didn't know anything about the insurance business, and by the way, was a Pike. As you could see, in a lot of these cases, I know what I was doing. Ski taught me a lot. Taught me a lot. But all of it underlying was passion. I had passion. Nobody was ever going to stop my passion because I had a vision. Right, Ben? Nice to see you. I had a vision. I had commitment. I had purpose. You got those three things. That's how you get passion. Without those three things, the passion doesn't exist. Passion doesn't come from thin air. 2008, biggest economic catastrophe since the Depression happened. I buy a company, or announce buying a company in June of 2008. The worst possible time I could buy a company. Because what happened in the next 4 months, the world fell apart. The banks that were going to give me money at 5% weren't there. Hello, where are you? We're not here. And if I could find them, it was 13%. So all the modeling I did at 5 turned into 13. Cost me 8% more for $2 billion. Do that math. That's a lot of money off the bottom line that you thought you'd have on an accretive deal. Now, I had passion, I had purpose, I had commitment. I burned the boat. I was going to figure this out. I burned the boat. And everybody said you should walk away from the deal. Everybody knows this is the worst economic environment since the Depression. You got an excuse. Walk away. November of that year, I closed the deal in October. I found the banks, and they gave me money for 13%. I was $180 million in the hole off the bat. And the next month, my son died. My oldest son. I had a couple of choices. I could fold. I could not be compelling. I could say I burned the boat, but I got to go to plan B because I have all these bad things happen to me. The what else's don't work anymore. But I didn't do that. I had to figure out how to do it. I had to figure out under any circumstances, if you have a vision, and my vision was I needed to buy this company so this company could be bigger in America. I had a commitment to do it, and I had a purpose. Obviously, the purpose was to continue to build that company and save the jobs of the people in it. In February of that year, because I did this acquisition, cost a lot of money, stock tanked, I wind up with 7 offices in Chicago. We had 2, and this other company had 5. So they said to me, we got to close these offices. And he said, because this is a disaster. I said, we're not going to do that. Find enough space for everybody to get together. Where's all the space for everybody to get together? They said, the only space for that much space is in the Sears Tower in Chicago, the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. So I'm starting to think this is good. Economic recession. See the themes here? All adversity. Got to be committed. I go see the guy. I said, I need some space. He says, I got space. I said, I need 250,000 square feet. I said, yes, and I knew it was 60% occupied. In the real estate business, 40% unoccupied is death. Death. So I said to him, how much you want to charge me for 250,000 square feet? He says, I don't want to tell you. Why don't you tell me? I don't want to. You tell me. He says, the average price is $35. I said, I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to insult you. He says, no. He said, tell me. I said, $10. He said, you insult me. So I get up and start to walk away, and he says, 20. I said, if I keep walking, maybe I can do this for nothing. We settle on $14.50 a square foot. He says, do we have a deal? Remember what else? Remember what else? So I said, no, not exactly. He said, what do you want now? I said, I think the problem with this building, Ben, I say to him, is that the Sears name is a jinx. That's what I said to him. Because people think the terrorist attack is going to be the next building because it's the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. If you change the name to a dynamic, optimistic, futuristic name, that's not going to happen. He said, what should we call it? I said, Willis. Nobody knew who Willis was. They thought it was that kid from that show, What's Up? He said to me, I don't know if I could do that. I said, you check it out. Comes back to me the next day. He says, I can do it, but you got to give me $1 million. Now, during the whole negotiation, I'm not, he says blue, I said red. Anything he said I disagree with. I said, good, I'll do that. He said, you will? I said, I'll do it. He said, do we have a deal? What else? I said, not exactly. He said, what do you want? I said, you're not my client. You need to insure this building. You give me $3 million a year, I'll give you $1 million. I'm a Pike. He said, wait a minute. I give you 3. You need insurance. You got to have insurance. You do it with me. You do that, it's a deal. He said, okay, is it a deal? Not exactly. Because I got what else? I want to keep winning smites. What else? I said, your partners are not my clients. Come on. How about a little shot here? He said, how much you want? I said, another $1 million. He says, if we do that, do we have a deal? I said, exactly. We have a deal. So I get 4. I give him 1 that's written in a lease. So the name Willis goes on the top of the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. They told me I couldn't do it. I had all this adversity. I burned the boat. I had a shot to get out. Nobody was going to say, what's wrong with you? You had the worst conditions ever. Your son just died. No, I burned the boat. I had commitment, vision, purpose, and passion. The day we dedicate the building, Brian Williams on the nightly news says to me, after all these years, this building's called Sears. How did you show up and change the name? I looked and I said to him, have a close-up on me with the camera. I said, I asked. You see how it works? You got a vision. You got commitment. I burned the boat. I had purpose. That made me ask. Today, by the way, just so you know, the Pike was right. 100% occupied, the Willis Tower in Chicago. It's the home of the largest airline in the world, Continental United Airlines, the largest airline in the world's headquarters is in the Willis Tower. And I was right. That building was better off with the name Willis on it. 100% occupied. Look, I've been alive 26,700 days. Why do I know this, you're asking? My granddaughter had a math problem in school where she had to calculate how many days she'd been alive. Joe Plumeri, Tyler. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you.
And so we had to calculate how many days she was alive. So that's how I figured out that I had been alive that long. Hers came out to, her name is Elizabeth, to 3,670 days, and we rounded it to 68. So I started to be curious, and I thought about days. Day is obviously one rotation of the Earth. The year is one orbit of the Earth around the sun. And I started to think about that, and I said, you know, the only two finite measurements of time is a day and a year. Everything else is local custom. But to me, the greatest gift that we have is tomorrow. We actually have the ability to take this great gift called tomorrow. And if we look at tomorrow and we reflect upon what we can do, imagine what we could do. We could hug somebody. We could make somebody feel good. We can laugh with somebody. We can dream with somebody. We can think with somebody. We could hug somebody. There's so many things that we could do, all for the benefit of making somebody else's life better. So that when you go to bed at night, you reflect upon your day and what could happen tomorrow, and you think about all of those things, is what a great gift it could be. All of these companies and all of these stories and all of the vision and all the commitment and all the purpose and all the passion's meaningless unless it was for the benefit of somebody. A client, an employee, it's got to be for the benefit of somebody. Whether it's a fraternity, company, a city, you got to think in terms of what can I do for somebody else. There's three things that motivate people: greed, willingness to please, and ego. We all have all three. The trick is to get them in the right order. And the trick is to make sure that you have the most in the right order, in the right place. I'll tell you the right order and the right place. It's willingness to please, ego, then greed. If you live your life wanting to please another human being to make their life better, what a great place it could be. See, I think of Pikes, and I look back when I was asked to come and have this great honor. I look back at my brothers in 1964, 65, and 66. The bond that we had was we took care of each other. And we took care of the people around us. And that's something that I'll never forget, because we wanted to please each other, and we wanted to please everybody else on our campus. And that's why we were so good, because we had those ingredients. Now, if you got all those things, one thing you're going to have is swagger. You know what swagger is? You know what the definition of swagger is, Connor? Let me tell you. You want me to tell you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Swagger is north of confident and south of arrogant. I'm going to do it again. North of confident and south of arrogant. You don't want to be too far north of arrogant. You want to be south of arrogant. You want to be in that zone where you're confident, but you're south of arrogant. Anybody remember the movie Saturday Night Fever? You weren't born, but you could see it. How many people saw it? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Let me see. In the beginning of the movie, John Travolta is walking down the street with 2 cans of paint to the tune of Staying Alive. You remember that one? Staying alive, staying alive, staying alive, staying. This guy had swagger. He made 25 cents a week, but he had swagger. He had confidence in himself. So after me telling you all of this stuff, I want to reenact that scene so you feel swagger. This side of the room, up till here, you got it? And way back. And then this side of the room all the way over here. Now what I want this side of the room to do, and I'm going to show you the swagger walk. You got to remember this walk, because it's cool. This side of the room goes, right? And that side of the room goes, we're all Pikes, we're all Pikes. You right? We want to rehearse it? Okay. I'm going to start over here. Now you guys do this now. You ready?
We're all Pikes. We're all Pikes. We're all Pikes. We're all Pikes.
That sucked. Ready? Watch the walk. Okay? God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. How about one more round of applause for Brother Plumeri? Joe is going to join us for dinner tonight, where he will be presented with our Distinguished Achievement Award. We'll see you at dinner in 45 minutes.
I'm Joe Plumeri. I just spoke to the Pike Convention, to the most gracious, courageous, motivated, swagger-filled room that I have ever spoken to. Go Pikes!